So, with a bit of a winter season coming around, and that crazy blizzard coming from up north, at least in the States-wise, we have control weather.
Ka-chow.
8th level transmutation, casting time of 10 minutes, range of self 5-mile radius. Components verbal somatic material, burning incense, and bits of earth and wood mixed in water. Duration, concentration, up to 8 hours. You take control of the weather within 5 miles of you for the duration. You must be outdoors to cast this spell. Moving to a place where you don't have a clear path to the sky ends the spell early. When you cast this spell, you change the current weather conditions, which are determined by the DM based on the climate and the season. You can change precipitation, temperature, and wind. It takes 1d4 times 10 minutes for the new condition to take effect. Once they do so, you can change the conditions again. When the spell ends, the weather gradually returns to normal. When you change the weather conditions, find a current condition on the following tables and change its stage by 1 up or down. When changing the wind, you can change its direction. Now we get into those conditions that you can change. With precipitation, you have stage 1 through 5 with conditions clear, light clouds, overcast or ground fog, rain, hail or snow, torrential rain, driving hail, or blizzard. Temperature, you have stages 1 through 6 with unbearable heat, hot, warm, cool, cold, arctic cold. Wind, with stages 1 through 5, calm, moderate wind, strong wind, gale, and storm. Now, it doesn't have any other condition statements. Oh, we should probably talk about that. Okay, well, lucky for you, I had been looking into some of these conditions for another video that's currently planned at the moment. But in general, first, we're going to be talking about the changing in conditions. 1, you can never go undercover where you can't see the sky, or can't be. Now, it also says path. So that might not just mean sight either, so if a window is still there but it's closed, that might still end the spell. So virtually you have to be always outdoors, kind of. You could be under a brief balcony, you could be under a tree, but you can't really be underground. Or in a bunker, or in a separate plane, and then the spell's gonna end. Let's mention concentration for 8 hours, that's gonna hurt a little. Also, when you cast the spell, it's not instantaneous. I mean, yes, it's not instantaneous, it says concentration, but I mean in the sense that the change isn't instantaneous. Even the first casting of it, that still takes time. And it takes a decent chunk of time, at least 10 minutes. So this isn't really going to be in the middle of combat. I mean, it already takes 10 minutes to cast, so then it takes 10 minutes for the first effect to set in. Potentially, it could be 40. So you could have 50 minutes for one of these to set in. And then it's only up following the different stages. You can't immediately shift to one extreme or the other. It has to continue, and then each step going up a stage is going to take that 1d4 times 10 minutes. And then for only 8 hours, for a good chunk of a few of those hours is going to take up just by the conditions worsening. 5-mile radius, though. Oh, that's large. And it seems to follow you because its target is initially on self, not really a point within range. So you can walk around, move with the storm following you, which I think is where the prep would come in. You can't really, again, teleport, or not. Yeah, I guess you could teleport, but you can't enter a location where you don't have access to the sky. So cast this before heading into a boss fight or campaign, and that's where you're going to get its aspect, by having the storm develop as you are traveling, or heading to this destination, or having it develop first, then traveling to a location. And mechanics-wise, you might be saying, oh, maybe it looks aesthetic-wise cool, but here's the difference. The DMG actually has rules for some of these, but it's not in the player's handbook, it's in the DMG. Page 110 of the DMG has a variety of these weather conditions, though I'm immediately going to state that these only have the extremes. So virtually, when it comes to the precipitation, only 5 has any mechanical effect listed in the DMG. When it comes to temperature, 1 and 6, but when it comes to wind, 3, 4, and 5. So when it comes to stage 5 of precipitation is heavy precipitation. Everything within an area of heavy rain or heavy snowfall is likely obscured, and creatures in the area have disadvantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on sight. Heavy rain also extinguishes open flames and poses disadvantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on hearing. Knocking out 2 different kinds of perception. Though you do have to choose one of those initial effects. You know, whether snow or rain, hail, etc. Temperature at stage 1 with unbearable heat. 110 in the DMG with extreme heat. When the temperature is at or above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, a creature exposed to the heat and without access to drinkable water must succeed on a Constitution saving throw at the end of each hour or gain 1 level of exhaustion. The DC is 5 for the first hour and increases by 1 for each additional hour. Creatures wearing medium or heavy armor or who are clad in heavy clothing have disadvantage on the saving throw. Creatures with resistance or immunity to fire damage automatically succeed on the saving throw, as do creatures creatures naturally adapted to hot climates. So with that one, you have even more mechanical effect outside of hindering perceptions. Point that since the spell lasts 8 hours, if you're already in a relatively hot climate, or you have enough time to get to a stage of extreme heat, you have 8 hours to just sit around and be a nuisance, that you are somewhere within 5 miles of the targets who, every hour that they're trying to find you, or that you're around, or just over their village, are taking 1 exhaustion each hour. Likely. That can be taking exhaustion each hour. Now, DC's pretty low though, so. Now for number 6, with Arctic Cold. With Extreme Cold on page 110 of the DMG, whenever the temperature is at or below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, a creature exposed to the cold must succeed on a DC 10 Constitution saving throw at the end of each hour or gain 1 level of exhaustion. Creatures with resistance or immunity to cold damage automatically succeed on a saving throw, as do creatures wearing cold weather gear, thick coats, gloves, and the like. Creatures naturally adapted to cold climates. So it doesn't have the, if you're in heavy clothes, you automatically pass, the DC doesn't increase, but it also starts initially higher, at a bit of a medium. Now with winds, options 3, 4, and 5. Page 110 of the DMG, with Strong Wind. A strong wind imposes disadvantage on ranged weapon attack rolls and wisdom perception checks that rely on hearing. Strong wind also extinguishes open flames, disperses fogs, and makes flying by non-magical means nearly impossible. A flying creature is in a strong wind must land at the end of its turn or fall. Ooh. A strong wind in a desert can create a sandstorm that imposes disadvantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on sight. So that one, that's pretty good. Disadvantage on all ranged attack rolls. Not to mention the flying. If it's not through magical means, they have to go down. At the end of that turn or end up just falling, being tossed around. And the fact that's also stages 3 through 5, that's not that bad to go up. If it's calm, might take some time. If there's already a slight breeze, or not slight breeze, but a moderate breeze, it's gonna be pretty good. Tossing things around, head up to gale and storm, you're gonna be damaging structures. Now, when it comes to everything else past that, not much written down or mechanics-wise. There's other abilities that have listed effects kind of like it. And then you have the thematic and the setup and more a, how to put it? It's almost like a battlefield effect in like card games and stuff where you're, oh god, what's that card game where the battlefield was one of the things you could play down? It had an animated series, but it wasn't Pokemon or Digimon. It was like this other one that's from a not Norwegian, like one of the Nordic states. That's gonna be killing me. And in here there's no upcasting, and it's an 8th level spell, but for the large area effect that this could have, and I mean, the strong wind alone, sure that the heat and temperature stuff might be useful, might be not, give some levels of exhaustion potentially. Namely, it's the radius on how you can just hinder a village. And if you're doing this in a normal game, it's 8th level spell, you'll get that back at the end of the long rest on, so that night, or tomorrow, and just every day have a massive drought for 8 hours over the course of a while. On the initial burst, it might have some good effects when it comes to range attacks, and flying creatures, it's going to have great effects. Trying to fight a dragon, hippogriffs, wyverns, you're grounding all of them. It just takes setup and a 8th level spell. Time. If you use this outside of this where as like a villain who's just plaguing a region around them or slowly causing an environment to shift just by the climate being magically altered. Because that's the other thing, if you do this long enough over a period of time, all the natural life and terrain's even going to begin to die out or change. And the issue with that one is the concentration. You'd be dedicating 8 hours a day to concentrating on one thing. Now if you had a group of spellcasters with this, then things also get a bit different. You just completely shift out in this one region who's concentrating, who's casting it, who's prepping it, who's going to be holding on it, because it alters the weather, and it also takes time to go back to what it was naturally. So when you cast it instantaneously the first time, after someone had already cast it earlier, you don't need to wait to adjust it. You're just maintaining it. So that way you can kind of just keep the ball rolling. Also, it's over where you are. So if you have the radius of that effect, and then you cast it again, you can have this slow-moving extreme. Though I don't know why you'd do that, but you could. I mean, think about like a Druid circle or evil wizard group or cabal doing this as like punishment to a village or attempting to attack or destroy a farmland or something. Could be neat. Who rating-wise has a list of variety of effects. It takes such a long time to concentrate and initially set it up, and most of the options aren't going to have any mechanical downsides or effects. Even though it does have a few options, it's also going to take time to shift to those options, likely. So I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Because players can get uses from this, and world-building wise, different groups can get use from this. Because it's not just bad effects, you can also calm some extremes, world-building wise. You can have this Cabal consistently making a land arable, or farmable, or livable. Imagine in the Arctic a small spot that is perfectly left alone from a storm or blizzard around it, just because this one caster Cabal is being kept alive or functioning. And if their concentration drops, or if they're killed off, town's dead. Little sneak peek at the next video. Or upcoming video, not next video. I'm not going to set that precedent.